Poducer.
Bam. I like the turf too, boys. That's fire.
Dude, yeah.
I played soccer my whole life. I got a hate-love relationship with turf.
Yeah, a little turf toe.
Dude, it hurts so bad, but you want to play on turf. The ball hits real nice on the turf.
One time, you know the little like
Little pebbles, the little rubber things.
Yeah, dude, got in my eye.
Oh, hell no.
Bro.
Hell no.
It's probably still back.
Probably still there, dude. It probably fucked you up for life. Now you're a rubber man.
Yeah. Dude, it's not beneficial, but indoor soccer is so
dude.
fun.
So fun, bro.
It's
You
like
look at the walls,
hockey
dude.
and soccer at the same time. It's so fun.
I love indoor. I ended my soccer career freshman year of college. I got injured and was like,
That's when I ended mine too. Not because of an injury, but just like politics.
I mean, it was injury for me, but that injury was also a catalyst too to like make me realize I can't do that in music at the same time. And I was like, ooh, good timing for that realization, right? Freshman year of college in the fall.
Oh, freshman year of college. My bad. Mine was
You stopped in high school?
Yeah.
Oh, I played all through high school, bro.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was captain division. Dude, we went hard in high school, actually. Like, a couple
That's
kids
sick.
from my team went pro, dude. We had a really
Really?
solid fucking team, yeah.
That's dope.
And soccer taught me a lot about life, dude.
It's a great sport.
It taught
I
me a
just
lot
finished
about
Ted
life.
Lasso. Love that
Killer,
shit.
dude.
So good.
Killer.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, cool. I think we are ready to go.
Test.
Yeah, you are hot. Everything's recording, so yeah, man. Welcome.
Right on. Thank you for having me,
Yeah,
brother.
of course, man. Let's just let you introduce yourself real quick so people can know who you are.
Cool, no problem. So my name is Toma Andreev, and I am a manager in the electronic music scene, musician, music connoisseur. That's about it, really, on the professional title spectrum of things. That's me.
Nice. Hell yeah. Well, welcome, dude.
Thank you.
I always like to start out the show with a fun little icebreaker question, and that is, what was your first concert?
My first concert. So this one's a tricky question for me because as a kid, my parents took me to a wide range of classical music, plays, etc., which definitely shaped me in an interesting way because I fell in love with words instead of the music first.
Really?
So I was like, okay, words are really dope. And as a kid, I was always reciting poetry, remembering stories, short stories, etc. And I really fell in love with speaking and just putting words together in a creative way. And then somewhere around, 7 years old or so, I started playing guitar because I realized when my dad played me the Beatles and Zeppelin and Deep Purple, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow with Dio, some of the first things I was exposed to, I realized that they were using the instruments as almost like the guitar to me was like a secondary voice. And I was like, yo, this is a form of communication that's like beyond our words.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with it on that tip. So as a kid, that was important. My first concert that I formally remember as like an impactful, like, oh my God, I want to play music for the rest of my life. This concert blew my mind.
Yeah.
Was John Mayer. And that was at, I want to say Northerly Island. It was somewhere in Chicago, one of the big venues. It was on his Room for Squares tour back in the day. This must have been like 2000 and I want to say like 8 or somewhere in that realm. But I remember seeing John and being like,
You just found like he was just like
Because, okay,
seducing you, and you were like, oh.
Totally. And my whole thing was like, I had been really studying blues. Blues was like my itch. I was like, yo, Clapton is sending it to some other dimension. Keith Richards is sending it to some other dimension. All these white rock and roll guys that came up in like the 60s, 70s were taking influence from African-American blues and taking that and recycling it in a really cohesive way. And then I saw John Mayer and I was like, okay, on the billboards and albums, like he sounds like acoustic Americana pop, something along those lines.
Right.
You just go see him live, he's like Stevie Ray Vaughan on steroids. I was like, yo, where did this blues come from? And
He's become more that too.
as he's evolved,
You know what
for
I mean?
sure.
Like
Where
playing Grateful Dead, doing that
absolutely, where I feel like that was always probably his underneath foundational passion point. And in order to break through the industry, he had to make it more digestible for people at first. And he kept it, actually did a really good job at keeping it digestible on the albums. And then on his live performance, really showing his like full spectrum of ability on the guitar and on his voice and in all his like skill sets together. Like he's one of the most dynamic players of our time guitar wise, and then also one of the best songwriters of our time. And like shout out John Mayer for inspiring a lifetime of work in me to like pursue. So that concert was extremely impactful to me, I remember. And then it was weird because I followed that up with an interesting string of concerts of like Jack Johnson, Jason Mraz. I stuck to the J's for my first concerts.
Yeah, okay.
The three main J's to me were like Jack Johnson, Jason Mraz, and John Mayer. And all of them had an interesting thing I liked about them that taught me a lot about music. So John Mayer was like, yo, the versatility between album and live / like you could really like show your colors on guitar in the modern era in that spectrum of genre successfully, where I thought blues was dying. Then Jason Mraz taught me like really creative wordplay, where like his lyrics just like hit, and his rhyme skits almost like a rapper with a really good voice hit like some tropical Hawaiian vibe shit. And then Jack Johnson taught me that simplicity is important, because Jack Johnson fits in a spectrum of like, I'm in this range and it's one little niche range, but I do it really well.
It's also wholesome.
It's wholesome, and the content is wholesome, where it reminds me of Bob Marley in the sense where it's like, okay, the music feels good, but the message is also on point.
Yeah. It's not like super complicated, virtuosic music.
A lot of people can grasp onto it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those three concerts were those three people in concert, and that was all through high school. So for me, like at that age, you know, you turn 13, 14 and so on and so forth. Those are the ages where your brain really starts developing, and I really started to dive deep into my passions. Like I was a pretty good guitarist by the time I hit like freshman year of high school, but it was from that point on that I really took like a really deep dive into it and sent it to the moon. I got Pro Tools, started getting other instruments, and really started piecing things together, started putting bands together, and my life took off. I was never bored as a kid. Good.
That's good, man. I have a couple, different paths we can go here, but one thing I just wanted to ask was, what was one of your, like, so you're a manager now, you wear different hats too, but what was your artist name?
Oh, my artist name was, so my first name, like, is super killer. So, like, I just kept it always as Toma.
Yeah.
Never let the last name kind of slip. I pulled a Bono on the world, where I was always just Toma. But I had projects always, like, so my first band in high school was called Parties with Adam. And it was an inside joke on a party we went to in high school, where like this dude Adam was just being ridiculous and just really cheesy with the guitar, and he started singing to these girls, and we were like, dude, that's so corny. Yeah. So we had a running joke that was like, it's not a party unless Adam's there. So Parties with Adam thus. And then that was a pop punk project, which was interesting because I didn't even like pop punk at the time, but my homies were like, we should just play this. And I was like, all right. And we got pretty big, and like then realized we don't want to do pop punk for the rest of our lives. Oh my God. So we took a major step back, disassembled. And in college, I started a blues project called Soul Shine, which I really enjoyed playing on. And going into college, I really just wanted to be a guitarist, man, or a bass player. I wanted to stay on strings and stick in the blues world. I was convinced from John Mayer and from Gary Clark Jr. and from the Jack White trajectories of the world that it was doable. So I was like, I'm gonna go to Chicago and kind of build that in a city
to do blues,
in a city where the blues
but
is
a guy like
exactly. This city is famous for the blues. There's so much good blues that's come out of it. So I felt really comfy in the city. And then I met this kid Shane in college at DePaul, who like was this rogue producer dude, and he opened up my creative Pandora's box to like production in Ableton and like sound engineering. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't just pressing a button and doing a thing.
Yeah.
This is actually like engineering sounds and putting them together in a really comprehensive way. So then naturally I'm a nerd, dude. Like,
me too.
Like I'm the biggest nerd. So if you could catch my nerd in some kind of way, if you could stroke that, I will take it to the moon. So he opened that up for me, and I decided to start making electronic music. And at the time, I met another friend, Alex Cunningham, and me and him were throwing events at his house, and the cops kept coming. So at one point we had an idea and we're like, we should just start a production company and just start throwing events at clubs and venues instead. So we opened up a production company called Proper Productions. And at that time, people like Manic Focus had just moved down to Chicago with his brother Joe. Artifacts was killing it at the time. Branks, etc. We started bringing some of these artists out. We even did Closey's first show in America at the Abbey Pub. Shout out Chloe. We're doing Micro Worlds tour with her with Abel Gray. That's going to be exciting. Cool. But at that time, my point was that we got interested in putting on events, and it was kind of random. Like I never had a foresight to be in the music business at all. But that was like where I got my feet wet on it. And while I have this production company up and running, I got asked to guitar tech for Zeppelin 2, which is the biggest Led Zeppelin cover band in the world. And they're all amazing.
Greta Van Fleet. No.
Dude, they also throw mean Led Zeppelin cover, right? So that band was awesome because they were all old rock and roll guys who had been around either in like the 90s scene or the 80s scene in one way, shape, or form on a really big level. Like Paul Camp, the guitarist, which was my girlfriend's dad at the time. He worked with like the Smashing Pumpkins in the 90s, like really seasoned musicians that knew what they were doing. And being on the road with them, I remember being on that bus and just doing guitar tech work. And the drummer was also the tour bus driver. And I was like, man, I really want to like just do the music industry thing like for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play or whatever, make it in that aspect, but I definitely don't want to leave. And he goes, you know how to not to leave, kid? I was like, how? And he's like, just learn how to do everything. He was like, then you'll never not have a place. No matter what, you could always be the next thing, whether it's a sound guy, a light guy, a manager, a musician. There's always room for something, somewhere, somehow. And I took that with me as like a token of like, go kid. Like if you want to stay in this industry, you totally can. So musically, you know, things were always evolving for me. But mine, again, nerd in me was like, the music just wasn't enough for some reason always. I wanted to curate on a higher level. I had like a vision for like where it was going. Like as an industry, as a genre, I'm always thinking like, where is this heading? I try to see things full spectrum. So in order to like sit in a position where I could have some kind of like chance at legacy from what I do with my life, I thought that curating on a higher level would be adequate for me as on top of being a musician. So pandemic hits and everything kind of ceased to exist for a little bit. And at the time I was like kind of heavy into drugs before the pandemic. And I kind of got lost in my ways for a little bit. And the pandemic hit. And at that point, I was like coming out of a fog already. Like 2017 through 20, I was like, all right, let's just get my shit together type deal. And by 2020, I had kind of already like formulated this idea a little bit with my buddy Jim that I brought today. I got to credit him for being like the partner to like the think tank that kind of started this idea of like, let's put a roster together of painters and musicians and managers and let's put team behind this and see kind of what we could curate with our brains. And we crafted this idea of starting a collective at first called Creative Classics. And that collective eventually grew into my roster today, which includes 5 guys, 5 groups.
The chain 5 guys is included.
The chain 5 guys, yeah. Sponsor us, yo. We need French fries for days. Which consists of Kofresi. He was my, I guess, second guy. I'll take James Murphy was my first. He's a painter. Me and him kind of think tanked this up. And then ran into Kofresi, and I had known him from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was booking shows from Chicago. We ran back into each other in Denver, and then he was like, yo, do you want to send it to tour manage on this run? We were doing like summer camp and Arise and something else. And I sent it for 1 weekend, 2 weekends with him. And right away we were like, okay, this is cohesive. This is really cohesive, this working relationship we got. And his manager was trying to take a step down at that point, which was understandable. Aaron had been in the industry for a long time. So he passed the torch to me. I then had Kofresi. And then in the meantime in Denver, I picked up Say What, who is like I call his genre ratchet jazz.
Okay.
And I picked him up, and then Kaleidoscope, which is a funk jam band. And then this last December, Abel Gray came on board, and I am officially closing my doors as far as like more artists. There might be one sneaky one coming in at the end of the year, but we're going to keep that under wraps for now to make that official. But for the most part, we are staying where we're at. I picked up another partner as well, John Sweeney, who is Prop Cause's old manager. And he has an origin with Ben as well, because Ben's Kofresi's origin is with Prop Cause. He was doing a tour with him, doing live drums with him. So his start on the scene was kind of through Prop. And it's gone weirdly full circle, bringing on John. And shout out John, has been a great help. And I'm just at a point right now where like just expanding the team has been kind of where my mind's at. I've kind of filled my roster up to like a group of guys I really cherish. And
you got a solid nucleus.
A solid nucleus, dude. The foundation is really, really strong right now. And every guy on my team has got like a unique set of skills, unique talents, and we all fill in each other's gaps. And then on the back end, my team is amazing. And just trying to expand on that at this point. But to kind of go full circle on you, I never expected to be a manager.
Okay.
To wrap that up in a full circle way, I never expected to be a manager. I kind of thought I was going to be a blues guitarist, and I just ran into this and was like, I like this.
Yeah. And you had a lot of experience. And I kind of want to go back to that thing that the bus driver drummer told you as advice.
Shout out Ian.
Something that would worry me now is that like being a jack of all trades is like a master of none.
Great distinction.
But it is good advice in the sense that like from my own experience is just keep moving forward and learning new skills, because you're going to end up in a place where you know what to do with them.
Totally.
So I think that is really good advice. And
I think the advice was solid, and what you said is actually very applicable. My little brother, no offense, little bro, he always is like, I got a new thing that I'm trying to pursue, and he's young, so he has an excuse to do that.
Yeah,
and I always encourage him to, but at the end of the day, I always make that point of like, master of none, jack of all is not the system, but to loosely get your interest going in things, go figure out what they're doing. Go to the soundboard one day and be like, hey, what are you doing, sound guy? Just go peep game. Go to the light guy, see what he's doing. Go talk to the roadies, go talk to the techs. But that's all within music still. It would be different if you were bouncing like, oh, okay, I'm doing video games now. Oh, now I'm doing videography. Now I'm doing, if we're going to talk about like content, I guess that might all work together, but you probably want to find something like that guy was saying, if you want to keep doing music, just try to do everything in music. Because it's all within one house at the end of the day, right? So like if you're let's put it through just the point of a focal point. So meaning that like the perspective you see things behind, it matters. And in music, even if you're a musician, understanding what your manager does, understanding what your light guy does, understanding what your sound guy does, understanding what your PR team does, understanding what your booking agent does. Those are all important things for you to know as a musician, and then important for me to know as a manager, and important for our photographer to know too, because at the end of the day, we're all one well-oiled machine under one roof that is just music.
Yeah.
And it's an industry, just like medicine would be an industry, and it would be helpful to probably know what your nurses do. You know what I mean?
Probably got to go to medical school for that one.
Totally. 8 years. Put them in, dude. 15,000 hours or whatever they say is the limit.
It's a lot.
I believe it's more than 10,000 hours personally. Like everyone's like, put in 10,000 hours. I'm like, put in 50, put in 100, bro. See where that goes.
Yeah, that's real.
Pursuit
Even
should
if
be
you're
endless.
thinking about it too, that's like putting in hours. I'd say visualizing.
The pursuit should be endless. I think, and I always tell my guys this too, because as artists, as creators, period, let's just put it that way. Anyone who's putting themselves out there, we're our worst critics, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes we like to compare each other to other people who are doing the same thing. I never believed in that formula. I was like, you should always have yourself as your own competition and be at the pursuit of yourself getting better, and then only use others as inspiration. Whereas like sometimes we get caught up in like, oh my God, that person's killing it, and I'm doing X, Y, Z. And
I had a I remember this conversation really well with my godfather. I was in college and I was doing music, but like very new to it. And we were talking, and he was telling me, he told me it in Greek. And
You're Greek, by the way?
I'm Greek, yeah.
I'm Bulgarian. We're brothers.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude, I grew up like an hour away from the Greek border.
So yeah, you moved here. We can talk more about like
We'll dive
that whole
into that
journey.
after,
But he told me, he was like, one bean at a time, and the sack fills up. And
I love that. That's my one brick at a time.
yeah,
At a wall.
and it's the same thing as that. He was like telling me that I went to high school with some guys, and like they burnt out, and like and he was telling me, he's like, I only recently started making pretty good money, and like I'm whatever 50, but almost, yeah, something like that at that time. And that always stuck with me. And I feel like my mentality has been, you want to be the turtle in the race. You don't want to be the hare that like burns out. And just if you keep moving, and like you're gonna stop, something's gonna happen that's gonna push you back.
Such
but
is
like,
life, yeah.
but like if you just keep getting back on the horse, I think that is not to be like too fucking like,
cliche or anything. But at the end
but-
of the day, there's like the biggest wisdom in persistence and not giving up, right? Like I said in the beginning before we had the podcast on, soccer taught me a lot about life. I played soccer as a kid.
Yeah.
And my coach one day was like, we lost the game bad. It was like 5-0. We got slayed, like one of the first games of the season. And he's like, you got to learn how to lose before you learn how to win, guys. So let's dissect this game. And then that moment didn't really ring in my ears until like mid-20s leading up to now, where it's really was like reminded to me in my head that man said that, because I took that and took it into my life as, it's okay if we have a failure. It's okay if you make a mistake. The important thing is where the lesson lies in each one of those things, whether it's a pivot point you have to take, an improvement. A lot of times we don't see as people the point of something until 10 years later. Sure. So when something's happening to you in your life, whether it's good or bad, just know that it's probably happening for a reason, and try to find what that reason is, what that silver lining might be, where that lesson lies in what's in front of you, because life is fruitful whether it's good or bad. And I think being patient enough to get to anywhere that you're trying to go that satisfies your goals, it's a pursuit. It takes time.
Yeah, being a practitioner, like you gotta.
It's a great way to put it.
I like thinking of that, like that there's really no like mastery. It's just like I just practice to be better. But anyway, not to get too much down the like whatever we call that, like self-help type of deal.
Self-help rabbit hole.
But this all makes sense as someone who's a manager, because you're dealing with people who are generally emotional. Let's just put it that way. Like a lot of artists.
We don't have to lie about that. We're sensitive souls artists.
I mean, we're all emotional beings, whether or not we realize it. But I would say artists wear it on their sleeves a little bit more.
A little more vulnerable with it.
But as someone who deals with artists, like, I guess like a very broad question, like, well, actually, I wanted to say this too. It's kind of like being a coach a little bit. You want to be like the coach helping them. You're if they're a boxer, you're like the guy that comes out and
pretty much
tells them like, yo, bro, you got this. What are we here for? Like you try to get them zoned in. But I guess like a general question I want to ask is like, how do you cultivate that? Is that just been like a life, like your life to get there?
Yeah. So in my life, I think moving across the pond and having to like intermingle in a completely different ecosystem of culture made me really adaptable and like really observant to people and people's behavior. So like people mastery or dealing like I like the word diplomacy a lot. I think diplomacy is like an art form, right? So being able to like work with people and find middle ground, and that's always been a skill set that's been with me.
All right, let me ask you this. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother who's 10 years younger than
you're
me.
older, yeah.
The oldest.
See, I'm the diplomatic. Me and my sister are both diplomatic in the family. Let's just put it that way. But it's interesting how like generally, if you have siblings, one person ends up being more diplomatic.
Oh, my brother is anti-diplomat.
Yeah.
He's dictator. He's like red button.
Yeah.
100%. So me and my mom are definitely like diplomatic in the sense where we're always mediators in the family between the states, grandparents, my mom and my dad, me and my brother. Like somehow me and my mom are always in some kind of mediating factor.
Sure.
Which definitely has bred me in a certain way. So that's always been a part of me. But like managing to me is like at its foundation, like what you said, it's like a coach, but like in order to be a good coach, you have to understand what the vision is. So like I like to take every one of my artists and like I work with you if I really see your vision and if my vision and your vision work well together. Because if I'm not equally as passionate about your project and about the overall vision, I can't be the best coach for you no matter how hard I try. Because at the end of the day, like for me, this is a creative pursuit, even on the managerial side of things. So I try to just like be the artist that also doesn't have to be the artist in some scenarios. So I think that puts me in a unique position. I think being a musician and an artist before I was ever a manager lets me understand the needs of the artist as an artist and the needs of the industry as like what needs to happen to push projects forward. So that lets me sit kind of on a weird like North-South Korea like border where I feel like those two worlds clash a lot of times, where it's like business and art are like a weird working, non-working relationship where it's kind of almost a little toxic.
There's compromise.
There's a lot
of compromise. And that's something I realized.
There's a lot of compromise. There's a lot of compromise, and there's a lot of like picking yourself up by the bootstraps and trying things over and over again. So the resilience factor is something that's important that I try to drill in all my guys. Like, be resilient. Like, if we fail at something, that's just another way to figure out how not to do something. Let's find out how we can adjust this. But I think that really just like the passion that we equally pour into it, like I really feel like I'm a part of every single one of my guys' projects so intimately, in the music, the visuals, the bookings, the care we put into each one of these projects is not a one-man operation. So like I'd like to take credit for more things, but the reality of it is we all pull so much weight. And it takes a team it takes a village. That kind of mentality is kind of what's needed to propel you in this industry. If you have good music and we're confident of the fact that this music is good, something special is in it, right? Then we have to build a family around that piece of music and that person and nurture that like a village would in order to bring it to where it needs to go to be heard by as many people as possible. Like I said, in that, bringing it back to the tour bus driver, understanding that like it's really a dance between so many people is amazing. Like this last weekend we did Grid Life, and I love that festival, Grid Life. Shout out Collective, shout out Grid Life. You guys do a great job out there. But I love that festival for a reason, because they always take care of us really, really well. And I had that moment this last weekend where I had the reaffirmation moment that like everyone here matters. The security guards, I was like, you guys are killing it. Thank you. The artist relations person, Anya, she was so on point, taking care of everyone. All the artists were pitching in, like Boogie T, shout out Boogie T, giving us an extra 7 minutes so we could do our thing and take up our full hour. And we adjusted things between each other as artists. And everyone, when they're working together for a common goal, which is to put on the greatest show, put out the best music we can, things go great. So my philosophy with all my artists always is, what's the common denominator, boys, in every success story on the planet with music? The music. If you're ever wondering why you're struggling in your career for whatever reason, you should probably go back into the tunes first and see if, and double cross reference if the tunes are where they need to be. And like I always think that like
mix quality, arrangement,
creativity,
music,
absolutely. Go back into the music, because like I always give the example of Kanye, bro, or Michael Jackson or something. You could be weird, you could be crazy, you could be Van Gogh, cut your ear off, but no one's going to argue with a good track or a good painting. At the end of the day, we can even separate the art from the artist and say, okay, yeah, that was a great album, but this motherfucker's crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm very okay with the
Me too.
separation.
Me too, because at the end of the day, I really don't feel possession to the crafts. I think that we're almost antennas or like mailmen.
Yeah.
We're meant to deliver it to the people.
Mailman, that's funny.
It doesn't
I just
belong to us.
I just got like an idea / song, in a piece of mail, and now I'm gonna write it.
Dude. Divinely sent to us from the universe. We're just meant to craft it, shape it, and deliver it to the people. It doesn't belong to us in the way of like possessions do. Like where I'm like, yo, these jeans belong to me. That song belongs to the world. So my job and my artist job is just to get that piece of music to its best form. Like I really have been inspired by Rick Rubin in my life.
Yeah.
Rick Rubin is the type of
Great.
guy who's always trying to pull the best piece of music out of whoever's in front of him because he knows the secret sauce is the music. At the end of the day, he took Johnny Cash, great example.
Yeah, I just watched his 60 Minutes.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Like just for everyone who doesn't know Rick Rubin, dive into him. One great story of him is like Johnny Cash goes on a 30-year hiatus, like not making any music, depressed, etc. He's like, my career ended when it ended. And at the end of his life, Rick Rubin brings him in and he's like, we could do something here, dude. Like, let's find where the gold is at. Finds him a 9 Inch Nails song,
Yeah.
Hurt, which 9 Inch Nails, okay, rather successful, but putting that same song, which is about regret, to be sang by at the end of his life, Johnny Cash, was so impactful. So like pulling the best piece of music out of Johnny Cash at the end of his life, pulling the best music out of Mac at the end of his life. Like Rick Rubin believes in like, yo, if that artist is talented, we could pull some gold out of them. So once I see I call them little golden nuggets in the music. When I see a golden nugget in the music, our job from there on out, or the art or whatever, is to make that golden nugget develop into the best piece of music or art that we could possibly make.
That's interesting that you say nugget, because I was just listening to a Mr. Bill podcast episode with Seth Drake, who's like a mix engineer
Nice.
who's done
Yeah, I'm aware of him. He's
so
a beast.
he's a beast. But his like methodology is talking about, specifically in mixing and mastering, is finding the nugget. What is the
I love
what
that.
is it about? What
Other
is this
people.
song? What is necessary in this song?
Exactly.
And then base everything around that. And that's more specific, but I guess just that nugget idea.
That's like when my guys bring me
It's cool.
ideas. I mean, all my guys can vouch for this. Like they bring me ideas all the time. I'm really concerned at first listen if there's any golden nuggets in there. If I find something that's saucy in there, we can work and develop around that. Great example of that is we went out to New York with Kofresi to record with Modest Yahoo. We had
My friend sent me that track the other day.
Yo, I'll shout that track out right
Randomly.
now, actually, because that's a great track. If you haven't listened to it, Modest Yahoo and Kofresi put out a Bob Marley Is This Love rework. It's amazing. It hits on new era of genre, but still keeping that classic undertone. But anyway, so we went to New York to record that song. We had that in mind to go record. They started messing around with this Beautiful Day sample where the little kid was like, it's a beautiful day, yeah, 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 yeah. It was a viral video on the internet. And that one little sample we just started playing around with, and like, it was a golden nugget in itself. And I said that from the get-go. I'm like, that sample is a golden nugget. And they put together this amazing song, which now we're sitting on. So we'll see if that comes out in the near future, guys. But the point of it is like, it just took one sentence that was a golden nugget for us to literally, within 12 hours, have a pretty complete, cohesive track.
I don't know what's going on outside right now.
We're in
It's,
Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. So there's cars, ambulances, and trains.
And I also just say fuck it, because I want to keep it cool in here, and we keep the city ambiance sometimes too, for funsies.
Well, the sounds of the urban environment are just as valuable, I think.
I agree. If you don't like it, I mean, I could put a gate on it. I don't know.
I had a weird moment where I moved to the city, and I'm always been a city guy, man. And anytime I like now go back to my parents' house to just like stay there for the weekend or whatever, it's too quiet. They live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, I can't sleep.
Freaks
It's
me
too
out.
quiet. I need
Yeah.
a train. I need an ambulance. I need someone yelling something in the alley.
I agree, dude. It's weird. Yeah, my ears are like ringing, and then it's making me like think about, oh no, I've done damage to my ears, and I'm like, I get like tweaked out by it. It's too quiet.
It's too quiet. Where you kind of get used to that. And I'm actually the kind of guy who can't stand silence, which is weird. I get the comfortable silence thing, and I'll enjoy a good comfortable silence with someone.
Sure.
But for the most part, I like to have some kind of sound going, even if it's a fan. That'll do, if that's the bare essential.
Let me ask you, on the management front, what does the day-to-day look like? Because you say, you're out in New York, you're kind of like, it seems like you're tagging along a lot of the time. You want to be there
so
to...
I'll dive into that actually a little
yeah.
bit. So my day-to-day on a Monday to Friday tip has a lot of correspondence. Correspondence between me and my artists, correspondence between booking agents, correspondence between photographers and myself, correspondence between talent buyers, labels, PR companies, etc. It's a lot of correspondence, really, and like really piecing together the puzzle pieces of like this thing I call like the machine behind the music, which to me is pretty structural, where you can pick it apart. You can pick apart the parts that are needed. You need marketing, you need promo, you need PR, you need licensing, you need booking, you need all these facets that go into the industry to make it complete. So my day-to-day is spent figuring out that puzzle at all times. However, I always doubled myself up to tour with my guys, whether I have a tour manager on with them or not. I'll send it to as many events as I can, because I understood something really important over the last couple of years. And it's that no matter how much communication you put behind a computer screen or a phone, it's never going to be as impactful or solidified until you put a face behind it. I've had so many examples of this where I'm like, oh, I don't know about this person because the only correspondence we've had is through email. And then all of a sudden I meet them in a green room, or we hop on the phone, even bare minimum voice to voice. And I'm like, oh, you're cool. We could work together. Now I've caught the vibe of the person you are. And it makes business much later, much easier when I can call you and be like, yo, did you check the soccer game out last night? Or, oh my God, Grizz just announced this thing. We geek out over just news or whatever random things because we're friends. And then at the end of the conversation, we get to whatever we have to tackle, whether it's a show or a label contract or whatever. I think people are like, don't mix friendship with business. I'm like, I don't know. I like to have my business close to home, if that makes sense, where I like know what you're about.
Going back to the village.
The village, I believe in that idea. Like we've tried to like accelerate ourselves through technology, and that's definitely happening. And but I think the nuance to that is that we have to still remain true to our foundation, which is very intrapersonal. And like how we are in this room today, like anybody listening to this podcast, I love podcasts because they get you the closest to like the intimate room.
Fly on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely, where you can kind of be a part of the room. But it's like until we're face to face and feeling each other's energy and vibrations in the room, like there's something missing there.
I've done like video or like Zoom call podcasts, not the same. Latency. I mean, it's like not bad, but it's not the same.
It saved us in a time where we couldn't be together. Let's just put it that way. Like COVID automated a lot of things and allowed us to recognize that in dire straits, we could at least communicate in some way, shape, or form. But when we're given more wiggle room than that, we should do more face-to-face things. And I like to create as many intimate relationships as I can within my inner circle of life and then my just professional circle of life as well, where I felt throughout my career that it's been easier to work with people who have a genuine fondness and appreciation for each other's craft and each other's person.
Sure. So, you have a full plate, it sounds like.
Most certainly.
It sounds like you wake up in the morning, you got shit to do. And that's good.
Yes.
But I'm curious, I don't know, like, someone who's maybe trying to get into management or something, like how would, they don't have a full plate. What do you start doing? Like, are you cold calling? Like,
Yeah. So I was given this advice too from an older gentleman in the industry on management. And he said, go do some proof of concept, meaning like get someone you think is talented, who's not famous, who's not popular yet, but you see some talent in, and then go offer your services for free.
Yeah.
And then go prove to yourself and to those people that you can make something happen. If you are pretty sure that music is sauce and it's going to do its thing, then go test your skills out with someone who's at the same level of entry level as you. Find that other underdog out there who's trying to do their thing in their particular corner, and then you do your thing in your particular corner. And eventually you can have enough precedent that shows that you do good work to where the universe will provide you with an artist, a group of artists, and you can run that up in a professional way. But just like anything else in life, go show what you got. You know, go to do the internship. Like Loper, Taboo and Wakan's manager and Liquid Strangers manager, he just put out an internship not that long ago for Wakan for his roster.
Yeah, that'd be a great.
You know what I'm saying? Like go
Yeah.
either find a company where they're offering an internship or go run the internship yourself like I did. I just ran that internship myself. I was like, I'm not waiting for someone to hire me. Screw that. I was like, I'm just going to run this independently. And I really grew up in Chicago where Chance the Rapper and Vic Mensa and guys in this city really took independence at like another level when I was growing up in the city. So I always believe that like if someone's not going to give you an opportunity, go grab it yourself. And I've always been that kind of guy. I watched my parents move to this country. We immigrated. We won green cards, which is crazy. It's another crazy story, like a green card lottery. But I watched my parents come here and start from 0 and go all the way to 100 and have all the challenges in front of them more than most people I saw. And I think that shaped me in a certain way.
That probably shaped you.
Yeah, to kind of take what I want and run with it, even if there's no one there to hand you the opportunity. But I would recommend, you know, like peeping game on, like my whole thing is always remain teachable. So if you're not sure about something, the best place to start is like in a job shadowing situation where it's like find another manager and hit them up in the DMs or shoot them an email, find their phone number and be like, hey, I really like what you're doing. And I've actually done this with a couple guys in the game before. Like John right now that I just took on my team as well. I mean, he started off as a mentor to me and now we're working together. Whereas like I really just appreciate when someone's got something to teach me. And usually if you go up to someone, like if someone came up to me today and was like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing and I like what you're doing. Can you teach me, you know, some of the ways to do this? I would be honored to, because at the end of the day, when you have gotten pretty good at something, the best thing to do next is pass it down. You see artists do it all the time too, where you blow up and then like Grammatic, I got a chance to witness that project of Low Temp pretty intimately around X-Mag and Grammatic during like the mid 2000s, 2012 through like 20. I had a lot of entanglement with them and it was cool to see Grammatic start as a singular piece project, move into Pretty Lights fam, intermingle in America, and then all of a sudden start Low Temp. You started putting on Russ, Liquid, and X-Mag, and all these guys, and I saw that and was like, the next piece of the puzzle is passing it down for sure.
Yeah, it's good that you like see that because it's easy, I think, to be like, oh, I worked so hard to get here. I need to hold on to it.
It is, and the ego in us wants that. I think in most cases we want to shelter what we've built, but I think control is the ultimate paradox in life. You have to let go of control to get it.
Yeah, that's real. I never thought of it like
deep,
that.
right?
That is deep, yeah. Well, it just seems like a smart thing to do is delegate. Like people come to you and want to help. How do I put you to work? Yeah,
turn them from a liability into an asset, always. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone wants to work, put them to work somehow. Let them earn their bones. Like, we had a great photographer at one point, Carly Adair, and she was just like this underdog who was just taking really great pictures, and we kept hiring her for events. And now just watching Carly go, amazing. Where, like, if you see talent in a young cat, bring him on. And I know Peter and Abel Gray was on this podcast as well, talking about X Medias and what he does with that label and trying to pick people up that, you know, give them an equal opportunity if they're just good, period. If you got talent, let's see what we could do. And that's a delicate balance too. You don't ever want to fill up your own plate too much. Don't take bigger bites out of the apple than you can. Like what he said earlier, building like a brick at a time or however you put it is the move for sure. But eventually like that grows and you'll be surprised before you're halfway there how far you've come. If you just put yourself out there and be confident in just starting. I think the hardest part of life and anything is just starting, right?
Well, because it's so uneasy when you're starting.
It is.
It's so awkward. Like even when I think back on like internships that I've had.
Scary kind
doing
of, right?
like stagehand stuff. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Do I even like doing this? But then down the road, I'm interviewing for something else. And they're like, oh, we love that you have stagehand experience. And it's
of
like,
course.
okay, yeah, well, that's, you know, you never know how these things are going to
play
happen.
out. Where are you going to use the
I didn't end up taking
too.
this job, but it's just like, that was just like a feedback thing that's like, okay, it's good to have all that experience.
Absolutely. And
you never know.
You never know. And putting yourself in as many situations to learn, always remain teachable, for real. In every situation, even when I'm watching something random on TV, like I put on space documentaries because I love space, dude.
Who doesn't love space?
Like literally, like give me something about space and aliens and quantum physics, I'm pretty much set for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And dude, even like that information, like I'm not a physicist. My father's a physicist, but I'm not a physicist. But it invigorates my mind so much to where like I bring that into conversation, much like I am right now in this podcast. So no knowledge is wasted knowledge. And the brain has a great way of taking every bit of information and finding a useful place for it. Whether you're consciously aware of that or not.
I was thinking about that the other day too, that it's like, how much information can you actually take in? And it seems boundless.
But is it though?
I don't know, but it's like there's things that you'll be reminded of. They're like, oh yeah, I did do that, or like that did happen, or what, or I do know about that. But where am I pulling that from?
Absolutely, and like I've been amazed at how many things just resurface later in time that like were tucked away for periods of time.
Yeah.
So I think like that's one of the most interesting pieces of our evolution right now is like, where's the capacity of the human mind going?
I know, yeah, it's very
and that's an interesting like door to open for us to explore. And there's people out there who that's their passion. And I love that about the human race is that we all have unique passions and they all matter to like this greater ant colony. I love using an ant colony as an analogy.
It's a great,
because each ant doesn't necessarily know like what the agenda of the ant colony is as a whole is, but it knows its individual part. And each ant doing their individual part eventually makes up the colony being successful. Correct?
Right. Yeah.
So like we kind of work in that same way where like everything we do is purposeful and fits into the greater good of like our people.
So that's
bad.
the thing is you guys are all driven. But I think about people who literally don't know what to do with their hands. They're like, I don't even know where to start. And that's kind of like what we were talking about before is just starting. And I don't know. It's like, have you seen that movie Beach Bum? Or like just the concept of like having everything you could ever want. Money, whatever. Like you grew up
just off a whim.
Yeah, like you just won the lottery. But like somehow you're just depressed because you just have to be doing something.
You have to be doing something. That's
mean?
like when people get successful, for instance, if you don't have a next thing that you're trying to pursue. Because, okay, let's say you set a goal. To me, like the ultimate high in life is like setting a goal and achieving it. Like I've done all the drugs, trust me. Ain't no high better than setting a really high goal for yourself and hitting it at the end of the day. So, it's good to set those goals for yourself and just go out there and try them. Yeah. I think that we almost stumble upon what we're supposed to be doing in the action of just trying things as opposed to like, I figured it out when I was 5, like, and then I ran with that forever. Like, I think it's scary to like think about the thought of like, what's my purpose on the planet?
Yeah, don't even think about that. Cause I'm kind of the same. You were saying like, you don't love just like quiet time. I'll do it intentionally, like meditation, but that's still intentional. And then also like, I like to move like a shark. Just keep pushing water through the gills.
Same.
Like, just keep going.
Same. And there's a time and a place for everything, for sure, in life. Where like there's time for me time and downtime. But even in that downtime, my brain works in such a way where it just can't not be doing something. My dad at one point, my life was in a weird place. And my dad was trying to dissect like why I was so unhappy and unhealthy at the time. And he goes, walk me through your like day from the time you wake up. And I was like, I don't know. I wake up, I smoke a cigarette. I get high a little bit. And I'm like, I really got nothing to do after. He goes, stop right there. He goes on the whiteboard. He goes, nothing to do. Underlines it 3 times, circles it. He was like, if you could solve this part of your life, you will solve every other issue by just finding something to do. Isn't that rather easy? And I was like, I think this man's onto something.
It's such a simple concept, but I almost feel sad for people that feel lost in that.
I actually do too, where people don't know.
I know people where I'm just like, dude, you're so smart. just do. I
Just
don't. It
do
doesn't even
something.
matter.
Just do anything. You would kill it in anything because that brain. I have guys like that too, where I'm like, oh my god, you have a remarkable brain on those shoulders, bro. Just do anything with it. You would probably be successful. But that is the saddest thing. We talk about it all the time, and that's a good note for managers. Always remind your artists and your team how lucky we are to do this every single day. And if you really love what you do and you're doing it out there, you know that feeling I'm talking about, where you get on stage or you go behind the operating booth or whatever it is that you do at a professional level out there that you're passionate about. We're really lucky to be doing it at that level. So, and that feeling of gratitude comes from realizing that there's people out there who aren't fulfilling themselves in that way, and that we really are lucky if we found something that we love. And that we, like, when people ask me like, oh, I'm trying to get in this industry, I always ask them, like, and this is probably something that any person in any industry would bring up if they're a professional in it, is like, do you love this to the point where like you would be doing this probably anyway if you weren't getting paid? Or would you do this in the middle of a hurricane, like trying to still piece the puzzle pieces together? Would you do this when you're broke, hungry, thriving? Doesn't matter, because like it takes that level of perseverance and anything. And I think people's problem a lot of times post start, like if you've started something, is just not sticking with it long enough. And I think we live in an era where age has kind of become a little more vague on rules against you being a certain age doing something.
Yeah.
So like for
I try
anyone
not to give a fuck about that.
forget your age, bro.
Yeah.
For all you guys know, I'm 75 years old, right? It doesn't matter. Like at one point, like it really just matters the quality of work you put into something. So for anyone out there who's like, I'm too old for something, I'm too whatever for something, no, you're not.
Yeah.
If you have an idea, just go out there and try it and see what happens. It just might work out.
True. Ryan, I mean, we were talking about this before the show, just like some questions that we wanted to ask you. And I don't know, tell me if this is kind of the question that, do you have like a radar or like a some kind of filter that you put new artists through that you're like, all right, all these things need to check this box? Like Ryan was saying, what was it that, like, how do you know when an artist is in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it cuts both ways. So it's like, how do you as an artist know that a manager is really riding with you? And how do you as a manager know this person's going to ride?
Yeah.
Got you. So that's a great question. So that's something that I definitely take into consideration when people come to my table in any way, shape, or form. And I hope that my artists do the same for me, where it's an equal distribution between, actually it's probably unequal in the favor of hard work versus talent, where it's like, I need to see that you have the skill sets that are necessary to perform the craft that you're doing. So in an artist, you know, are you creative? Are you trying to push the envelope on yourself to create things that are new? Do you work endlessly at this thing to keep polishing and perfecting it? Do you have the energy and the perseverance to continue that forward? Those are things that are important to me. I read something in BMI's records where it showed what every top song of all time had in common. And the number one thing was a list of 3 things, but the thing that was first on the list is they did something new. So I always try to find guys who are trying to do something that hasn't been done. They're trying to find a new nuance on it, a new idea from something else. Like I'm always trying to see like where the next evolution point is in music. Like right now I've been assessing the fact that we've had a lot of digital technology enter the music spectrum, right? And our palette has widely grown because of that. And anytime that something evolves and we get some kind of variable that gets thrown in, like technology, for instance, we tend to go into extremes of using those tools. And then eventually we take the things that were happening before that variable got thrown in, and then we get to like a new thing where we combined all the things that are in front of us into something cohesive. So I'm looking for like what's next up. Like I always tell guys, don't go making music trying to be like someone else, because by the time you get good at making that type of music, unless that's what naturally flows out of you, you're gonna be late to the punch. There's gonna be a whole nother lane of a whole new thing of someone who is just doing their thing within their own lane, and somehow it fit the time. Like there's so much we don't like control in this. Like You can make an amazing song.
cycles
Yeah.
of what people like.
Exactly. You can make an amazing song and you could be like, this is the best song ever, and everyone in your team and everything agrees, but you put it out there and maybe it was just the wrong time in the universe, the wrong time in music. Maybe someone put an album out on that day that shattered that release. There's so many things that go on. So I'm looking for people who are making music that is different. It doesn't have to be guaranteed successful in my mind. It just has to be good and different. And I like the peculiar ones. I like the outcasts, the guys who are trying to do something different, even though there's 20 more obstacles in front of them in order to get that. I like that guy. Give me that challenge. And then if we make it, we've got something new and something unique on our hands. And I'd rather play the long game on that one. And then also, how hard are you working? And are you understanding the needs of each other and where the project's at, right? Like there's just different tiers of where you're at in this, and each tier kind of requires a certain level of care. And I think that
what would be the tiers? Like if we could just give that roadmap.
Sure. Like, I mean, like in the beginning of your career, you're trying to get as many bookings as possible. You're trying to do as many collabs as possible. Later in your career, you're moving on to doing headline things. And then even later in your career, you're curating events. You're putting on artists below you. There's just different things that get tagged on to your level of responsibilities as you grow as an artist. You have a bigger fan base to take care of, meaning that there's merch, and then you expand your team, so like there's more people involved, so there's just a different level of responsibilities.
There's a team to feed too,
of course. There's a team to feed too on top of everything, and then there's just more to do, and there's more expectations on you. So like I really feel like when you're starting off, like you could hit the ground running really hard because you don't have as many of the things around you that take up a lot of your time outside of just the music. So in the beginning of your career, it's important to just get the music out there, make as much music as possible. Then it's important to start building your team and then getting you up on that staircase of like doing bigger shows with bigger artists, pulling in more people, getting more people to hear your music. And then eventually the final phase of this is like you solidify some kind of movement on your own, and then you pass that down to others. And I think that as we grow in our careers, we kind of fall under those three categories of like new in that bulk building phase, and then like I've established myself. Yeah. And I'm passing that down.
It kind of goes in hand with, I don't know where I heard this, but it's like you got like different stages of loving through your life. Like first you have to have self-love, and then there's love for like your community, and then there's love for all. And that's kind of
what I'm talking about, but in a strategy kind of way, where like you first dial in yourself, then you get a team, you dial in that team, and you start sending it in your ecosystem. And then once you've sent it in your ecosystem and it's thriving in that ecosystem, you start to tag more people along. You start to curate on a higher level. Yep. Like you look at like where Grizz is a great topic point right now because he just announced his hiatus. Grizz, go do your thing, my brother. I understand.
Makes me want to see his show in Radius even more.
Absolutely, right? Radius coming up this Saturday, whoever's going, that's going to be one.
Oh shit, I'm out of town. I forgot that was this Saturday.
Yeah, anyway. he's got a couple more events, but Grizz was a great example of like that whole process of like, I remember the years of him dialing himself in musically and getting himself out there as much as possible. And then getting to the point where he's working with bigger artists, and then getting to the point where he's doing his first headline tours, and then getting to the point where he's got all good records, and then moving on into curating his own festivals and Grizzmas and things like that, and trying to like curate on a higher level to the point where like it's okay to hit a point where he hit where you could take a break even and dial back. Skrillex just did it. Pretty Lights just did it. Take 2 steps back to make 3 steps forward. I think that it's okay to take pauses in life, as long as you're healthy and like it can secure yourself and preserve yourself. It's okay to take time off to continue to build. But in those first years, I would recommend you hit it hard and try to get some of the uncomfortable things out of the way, like the the thousands of hours of touring and
Yeah.
studio time, and the more you're prepared in the beginning, the easier the later steps will be. Another thing, to go back full circle on this, is like that's another thing I look for in artists too, is like, where's your catalog of music? Like, what do you
That's
have?
a big, yeah. What are you going to show me? What's your
Yeah,
trading
like
card?
what do
Like,
you have locked? Let me see the Pokemon binder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let me see what you have in the vault right now, so I know how prepared we are to send this into the future. Like, a large thing for me is like, if we have a lot of music that's ready to slingshot into the release basket and then get ready to prepare out to the people, then we can full push this. If we don't have enough music, I'm probably going to recommend we just make more music, and in the meantime do as many shows as we can that make sense, but
Yeah.
not push ourselves too hard on that. And that kind of lets me determine, so I guess to bring it back full circle, the amount of music you have and the quality that music is in its abundance matters to where you're at in your career. Because I never want any of my guys to hit a point on tour where they're touring consistently and there's momentum to this thing going, and then the people want more music, but you don't have it.
Yeah.
And you're having to like try to make music on the road in between, tour stops, and you're on the bus constantly working on Ableton. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I have guys who work around the clock and that's just their itch, but also like, it's good to have a foundation there musically, so that way you're more comfortable just making releases. Because when you get trapped in a place of like, I have to make new music, but I've made already so much and I'm tired.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it's like, you're touring, you're making money. That's your livelihood potentially now full time.
Totally.
It's like, okay, wait, but I have to make the music still to progress.
Exactly. So that's important to, as any young artist out there who's trying to hit the scene, don't be afraid to take a couple years of your first years, no matter when you start, and build that catalog up, because it's going to really come in handy when you hit the scene and you hit the road, and then you can kind of just allow your team to curate that library into existence, while you go out there and perform and be a rock star and give it to the people. And then if you create more songs in the meantime, they're just getting lined up, and you're being proactive about your future instead of setting yourself up in a position where you're gonna have a hard point of I don't know what to do, because I've seen that happen, and it's happened to me as well. We also get writer's block as creatives all the time too, so we have to account for the moments in our life where that just naturally happens, and you have to break through that resistance. Whoever hasn't read this book should. It's called The War of Art.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It is all about how resistance comes into our equation as creatives and how to overcome that resistance. And shout out to one of my guys on my team, Jim Murphy. He's a phenomenal painter, and he brought this book into my existence, and it's been something that's stuck with me. I bring it everywhere. I give it out to people.
I actually haven't read it, but someone was explaining to me kind of the boilerplate of it, and I was like, I should read that, but I haven't yet.
Every creative out there should read it, because we all experience moments where we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to write. I am stuck. I don't know where my career is at right now. I'm not sure how to pivot this in a direction I'm happy with. That book, on a foundational level, really explains generally how to break through some of those cycles and some of those dead ends. And I think like being prepared with knowledge, again, knowledge is power. So always remain teachable. Just learning some of these things, like, and applying them into your everyday operations and the things that you rhetoric out to your people consistently. Like, I'm a man of like really reaffirmations and affirmations. Like, I preach the same philosophies over and over and over again to my guys and myself as well, in order to stay solid on some of these things I've learned throughout the years, because I really believe that we perform best in routine and armed with a lot of information.
Yeah. I got a question about just like, someone who's starting out that doesn't know that much about management and just is potentially questioning whether or not they need management, and like what that point looks like. And then just like the other thing I was going to say is just like, what does bad management look like?
Sure.
And I'm sure there's tons of bad management, but like maybe like red flags, like if there's, I don't know, because I haven't personally experienced having a manager.
I would say you're ready for a point of management because at first, like, you're gonna make some music, maybe put a band together, put your music out there. You're not as busy to the point where like you can't call up a local venue and make the booking or whatever. Like when you are at a point where you are running out of time because you're making so much music and you're putting on enough shows and you just need help running that whole operation, that's one sign that you need a manager. Another sign is like if you hit a moment with like a song that like takes off, for instance.
Yeah.
That's another example of like you should probably put a team behind that right away. Because
Really? To just capitalize on it.
capitalize and then also secure yourself to be able to handle what's coming next, because you're going to need the hands on deck for what's coming next if you got something that takes off. Also just like just having that music again, like being prepared on the back end with your own self. Like, and I think that it's one of those weird relationships in life where like you almost don't go looking for it. It kind of finds you. And I know that's like hippie, vague, whatever, if you want to call it that. But it's really true. I feel like in the right moment, when you're actually ready and your career is ready for it, a manager will find you. You'll find a manager. There'll be someone at your show that hits you up on the DMs, whatever, that'll be like, hey man, this is really taking off. Like, I really like what you do. Let's see if we can work together. And that works on both sides, where like with Ben, it was more on like the side of like, he was like, dude, like we have a good working relationship. Let's see what we can do together. And then on others, it's like me going to them and being like, yo, this project is great. Like, let's see what we can do together. Well, we end up finding each other when the moment is right. I believe that the universe has divine timing, dude.
The serendipity.
It has a serendipitous timing to it, to where like you'll know when the time is. It's almost like a gut feeling with a little more preempted information.
So you really shouldn't be looking for a manager unless you got that gut feeling where like, I think I might need a manager.
The signs of the signs of what's going on around you will point to like you need a manager. Things are getting too heavy of a workload for you. The music's taking off, etc. And there's enough things that'll get presented in front of you to where you'll know. Bad management. Let's go to that.
I feel like maybe a better way to ask this question is like, you know, you get in with a manager and maybe like the more specific, like technical things, like what do contracts look like? And like, what does a bad contract look like? Like what does, and then also just general red flags, I feel like.
Sure. So, for the most part, like at its very foundational level, like you should look for something in a manager, and it's one word. It's called integrity. And you should look for that in all people you work with from the get-go. So like, what's the reason this person is in this
They're not like clinging on to you.
Yeah, like, are they in it for a bag? Like, I'll never pick up an artist just because they're a money grab type thing. Like, I have to be passionate about it. That artist should assess that manager and be like, why is this person working in management? Why are they approaching me? And make sure that their heart sits in the right place. Like, they're truly passionate about what they do as well. So right from the get-go, you should be able to establish like whether someone has a genuine connection to working with you or if there's a means to an end there. And I'm not saying that like you can't win from a situation where you find someone who's you got a means to an end through you and you through them, and you kind of wash each other's hands. That happens. But I think long-term relationships are formed that work well together, are formed when we start off on an equal passion point. And then from there on out is someone who you need someone who understands the industry. So like you said, like contracts, for instance. And if that manager doesn't understand contracts, like for me, I'm lucky. I had I was trying to be a lawyer in college, and I obviously didn't go through with law school because here I am today. But there was exposure to contracts, but still, we'll consult a lawyer if we need to. Find someone who is, if they don't know the answer, they will go and find that answer by any means possible. Because just like anything else, like if you're a new artist, you might get a new manager. Like I still consider myself a new manager. It's been a couple of years on doing this, and like
having a new manager might be like the best too, because they're like
you grow together. Yeah, dude,
like, we got to make this work.
I hopped on the scene hungry, and my guys were hungry, and together, like, I love when we can shake hands and say, let's grow together, because then we've accepted that, like, we both are hungry for this, and we're both willing to eat some losses together and learn and navigate through this very difficult industry together. Actually, like, people are like, oh, this industry looks so much fun. It is, don't get me wrong, the most fun. We have such fun on the road and putting together these amazing events and making beautiful pieces of art and music. I love it. But there's also a lot of stress that comes with it. So you got to find someone who's willing to walk that road with you. It's like a marriage almost, or like a therapist where you want someone to be there for the long haul.
Someone
to
you
kind
can
of
talk to.
that you could talk to. Like I'm like a bona fide therapist at the end of the day. Seriously, where like my guys call me with music problems, relationship
Life
problems, life
problems.
problems.
Yeah.
Because my job at the end of the day is not only to manage their business, but to make sure that they are secure and okay as a person as well.
Right.
To make sure that their life is functioning, because like Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us there's multiple things needed in order to make us successful and happy and fulfilled and whole, right? So as a manager, I have to take into account your personal life as well. If you're going through a breakup, I got to step in there and like set up a boys trip. Let's go on a team retreat. Let's go skateboard. Let's go hang out. If you're going through a moment where you're doubting your music, let's like figure that out. Like if your parent died, let's take time for that. Like it's all these things. It's on a professional level and on a business level. There has to be cohesion and communication. That word right there actually is probably the most important thing. Like the 3 prongs should be like passion, perseverance, and what did I just say? Cohesion and communication.
Yeah.
Like communication is important. You have to be passionate about something. You have to be persistent about that passion. And in the midst of all that, remain solid with being able to communicate.
And then you get cohesion.
Totally. Like I tell my guys all the time too, like if I do something wrong, guys, or if you think I'm not doing something right, bring it up to the table. If you want me to work harder, tell me. Sometimes we don't see those things in each other. And as a manager, like I encourage to push my guys as hard as I can, but I also expect that vice versa. And like all my guys do it in one way, shape, or form, where like we all fill each other's needs on pushing each other as far as we can go. And I think like that level of looking out for each other really makes a big difference. Because like we're not looking for a 1-year relationship here that's gonna just catapult us and then we're gonna find another one. Just like a marriage or a relationship, like it's kind of unless that's your goal. But it doesn't feel cohesive when you're a month with this person, a month with that person.
Yeah,
it's a lot of transitioning going on. So in this industry,
it's like moving. Like I hate moving.
It's like
there's
moving.
like 2 months of just like trying to figure out where
that
everything
readjustment
goes.
period. So it's good to find people that you could see yourself with for the long haul. And make sure your short-term and long-term goals align with that person.
For sure.
You know,
I also just want to talk a little technical things and going back to the contract. Like, what does a basic contract look like? Just, I mean, maybe there's tons of different kinds. But.
So it really depends on like what the contract's nature is in context of its topic. So, for instance, a label contract has to outline things like ownership and licensing and financial splits and whether the earnings from royalties are gross or net and what that breakdown looks like, how many resources are getting put into something. Basically, a contract should detail out every piece of that equation in a way that's understood clearly by both parties.
So in what you're laying out is kind of like something you would help an artist deal with, figure out like how to, if this is a good deal or whatever.
Sure,
but like,
absolutely.
I mean, I guess maybe this is a naive question, but like, would you get into a management position with someone without signing a contract? Like I'm kind of talking more about like the contract between management and artist.
An artist and a manager.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning it's okay if you don't put it on paper just to test the waters with people and see kind of how it will work out. I think I think it's appropriate to put contracts on things when money comes into play.
Right.
I think when you're at a point where the projects are monetizing and that money has to get divvied out fairly to people. That's why, like I mentioned, the label contract. Like the labels are usually putting in money for your release. That's why you got chosen by a label. They're going to back that up to put it out there. So whenever money is involved and legality is involved, you're going to want to put a contract behind it of some sort, because otherwise later you get into these gray areas of like, oh, we made all this money. How did it get distributed? where did it end up going? Maybe someone, like I listened to some podcast where Jake Paul was talking about how his inner circle ripped like millions of dollars from him because he wasn't paying attention and like didn't have his like proper pieces of paper in line to like prevent him from that. So like I think that's the nuance there, is like you need a contract between an artist and a manager once there's money coming in.
Yeah, because you hear horror stories of like huge, like Elvis, like I've talked about this on the podcast, where he just got like really screwed over by his manager, and it was very predatory. And you know, I guess just like the reason I'm asking this is because as someone who's a new artist that's like, I think I'm at that point. I think I need a manager. What, like, I'm sure there's resources out there, but you know, it's just like,
yeah, so there's even companies out there that'll do like a harder versus a soft launch, where like they do like I know agencies do it, some management companies do it, where it's like, okay, we'll test the waters with you. Let's do a soft launch. We're not going to put this on contract yet. Let's see how we work together. We put a month or two of work in. We do well together. Let's put a contract on this.
Gotcha.
Like, give it some proof of concept sometimes. A lot of times, some big companies will try to put you under contract right away. Just get that out of the equation. Like, if you're going to a big management company that has some precedent in the game and has some neck in the game, it's okay to probably sign a contract right off the get-go, because you already know how that manager is going to perform, right? If you're finding some independent guy who's trying to grow with you, like how I started with my guys, it's okay because at first you got to understand, like, the capital factor is relevant to every business, where like you got to put money you make back into the business for it to grow properly.
Yeah.
So at first, like when you're making like novel sums of money, like $500, $1,000, whatever, like little bits of money in the game, a lot of that's going to go back into the project for photographers, music videos, recording time, PR, whatever it is that you need at that moment in time. So at first, like, I really liked taking that approach of my artists in the beginning, where I was like, let's just dump this money back into the project.
Yeah, put it back in the
and that
the
was
treasure.
like, and that was and this is again, like, this is just my story and things that have worked for me. I understood that factor in the beginning, and I wasn't a huge corporation that had the financial backing to dump personally into these artists. So at first, I was okay eating a percentage, you know what I mean, like loss from my end, or taking that away for the beginning and keeping myself whole in the meantime in order to get the projects to where they need to go. And then when there's money coming in to be had, like, you can make that division. But if there's like a huge management company that takes you on and they already have that big financial backing, there's, you know, you could sign that contract because you know that they have the capabilities already and there's financial backing that's going to go into that. But
sure.
I think the money's really important. So like once money comes into play.
Do we need to pause real quick?
No.
Everything, they're just chilling.
They're just chilling, it looks like.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Water? They're grabbing some water.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yep. So
Just want to make sure that they're all set.
So when it comes to contracts, I think the money is really the important piece. Like,
Yeah.
if there's money involved, you should put a contract behind it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
Gotcha.
It's really what you're going to dispute in that contract at the end of the day. Where's the money going?
Yeah. No, it's just something I haven't dealt with. I think a lot of people probably haven't dealt with. So it's just useful information for potential listeners.
Totally. And then once you lock in a contract, it sets expectations as well. So like you could hold each other accountable to something. So I do recommend that even if you're a young manager or a young artist, getting a manager or whatever, to eventually get to the point of putting a contract behind things, just because there's a lot of convolution that can happen if you don't put something on a piece of paper. So once it gets to the point of like, oh yeah, we have funds coming in, we need to allocate these funds to our team properly, let's put a contract behind it. And again, it's just one of those periods of time in your career where you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know when it's time to put a piece of paper behind something. Someone will nudge you too, that's around you. If you're working at a professional level to any capacity, someone's going to be like, yo, where's the contract? Someone in that room will be like, hold up.
What are the splits?
Yeah, what are the splits? Let's figure this out because we're all working here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
For sure.
And I'm never about like not getting someone paid. Like, let's just get everyone paid. And the artists come first always in my mind. I'd rather eat a loss than have them eat a loss. But at the end of the day, I do believe that you should be paid out for your work. If you put out a quality product of any kind, a quality service, you deserve to get paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a delicate for me.
But
yeah.
when you say that, it's interesting because it's just like, oh no. I'll just work for exposure. Like, you know what I mean? It's like in this day and age, you got a lot of people that are they don't know their value. And maybe their value is also potentially going down when there's so much like music out there and whatever. But like, you know, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, there's a point where, you got to get fucking paid.
You got to get
And,
paid,
like,
right? And I think it's appropriate too to take things for leverage and for opportunity and for exposure in the beginning. But there hits a point where we're like, okay, hard cut off on those, and like the power of no becomes really important. Like the amount of times you say no to something is going to bring you closer to that yes you actually want.
For sure.
So like once it's time to start putting no's in front of things, like, no, we won't take that $200 offer. We want 1,000, right? You might take 10 of those no's before you actually get that 1,000. But like once you get that 1,000, then you could ask for 1,500 next, and you build that up. And I think that like the goal should be to build your value as you progress as a musician, as the quality of your craft increases, as the amount of eyes that are on and ears that are on your project increase. It's important to start setting those terms with people, because the storm that'll come after of not being able to financially organize and like structurally organize your operation can tank you. Michael Jackson's always the best example. My dad was like, you could be Michael Jackson and go broke. It's pretty simple if you spend more money than you make. So like really finding a good system to how that money gets trickled and allocated and to who it goes to and for what reasons is important. And a lot of times a contract kind of like lays that out importantly. So I think
everyone knows what is happening.
Exactly. There's no one left in the dark, and I never want to leave someone in the dark on something. I've definitely heard horror stories of people, you know, getting ripped off by their managers, running off with a bunch of money, vice versa, etc. And those stories make me sick, man, because I'm like, yo, I'm out here, and I know I've put in work for free for some of my guys, and that work was fruitful, and like my heart's always been in the right place. So like when I hear, you know, that happening, like it makes me sad. So it does encourage me to like at least, you know, put the word out there to get contracts up when it's time, because you want to avoid that. But again, that could all be avoided if you really take enough time to judge the integrity of a person before you get into bed with them.
Yeah, build those like interpersonal relationships. And I feel like another thing that I'm just hearing a lot is like, you really got to trust your gut. Like you got to like be like, I think it's time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like,
I always say your gut's your best advisor. Usually, like, you'll feel that. I think as animals, we have evolved with instincts that sometimes in today's society, since things survive, the elements of survival have changed
Yes.
quite a bit. We survive differently than we did 100,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've had these instincts with us forever, like anxiety and like feeling confident about something, feeling the momentum of something. Those are all things that are very gut oriented, very root chakra oriented. And I'm not even like the hugest believer in like, you know, aligning your chakras and things, but like I feel that in particular is like something that you feel in your gut. Where important decisions in your life and where you should go with things, you should listen to your head for sure, but your gut's a great advisor, where like your nervous system and your brain are connected, and like feeling how your nervous system is feeling about something is a good indicator of like maybe what's going on in your surrounding. Trust that your body is this perfect, beautiful design. It's like software and hardware that's so well put together to tell you and communicate to you what's going on around you, and you have a read of your environment at all times that's letting you know what the next move is if you're just careful enough to see that and identify it.
I think that's just like probably the most important thing we can talk about, because it's the half the time we've been telling people, or just, you know, generally advising people things you maybe should do, maybe shouldn't do, definitely don't do. And I feel like there's this thing where like you read so much self-help and you start to not even know what your gut is, because you've heard so many different pieces of advice that you're like, I don't even know what to fucking do.
This
anymore.
topic right here is really important, guys. So what he just said actually is some golden nugget shit.
Hell
because what worked for me might not work for you. Like when successful people are like, here are the 10 things that I did that make me successful. And it's like, okay, you might pick up and one of those things might work for you, but everyone has to find their like proper balance of things and situations and skill sets and whatever it is to fine tune their version of success. So like whenever I see like a 10 list of something for success, I'm like, screw that. I'm not reading that.
Yeah.
Because it's taken me already so long to develop what success for me looks like, which unfortunately is not going to be what success for you looks like. Like the people that pass down game to me, my success looks different than theirs, even though I took pieces of their game with me.
Yeah.
And like everything's an evolution of something else and an evolution of a combination of things going into it, like nature, nurture in the form of many things kind of entering your life. Like I said, like I just walked in trying to play blues guitar, learned a whole bunch of other things, somehow ended up here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like it's just like frustrating because it's like, oh, it was just like it's just luck. This happened to you. But I mean, you just got to be patient, man. I don't know.
Patience
Like
is virtue. Patience is virtue. Patience and consistency.
And I'm also someone where like I'm so hard on myself and like I'm like never at the point that I want to be. But growing up and maturing, I'm kind of like you gotta like take your wins.
Acceptance, dude. Acceptance is huge. Like accepting what's going on right here, right now.
Yeah.
And being okay with that, no matter what that is, and finding a way to get to the next thing from that piece of moment is important. And I think a lot of times we're hard on ourselves. I'm like, man, I should be here right now, but I'm feeling like I'm not here right now.
Yeah.
Just take your eyes away of like should and shouldn'ts and like try to put them on like what you can do and what's in your control. Yeah. And no matter what the outcome is, if you put in your all to something,
give it your best.
Give it your best.
Definitely.
You could at least walk away from it saying, hey, I tried this, man. And I actually put in all my effort. If you come out of it and you're like, man, I could have worked harder, maybe it's not time to give up. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you could dial that in a little more. But if you're going to walk away from something like at the end of your, like to me, I plan to walk away from this at the end of my life when I die. So like I want to be sitting on my deathbed thinking like, okay, like I'm pretty happy with the things that happened. They might have not been perfect. They might have not happened all in the time that I thought they were going to happen. But at least I went out there and I tried and I gave my best. And in that process, I guarantee you, each and every one of you will find success in your own way if you keep at it.
Real, dude. All right. Well, we've been going. I don't know how long we've been going. Yeah. Doesn't matter. But, there's a couple of things that like maybe I could ask you afterwards, just like technical stuff, but I don't know. I feel like we've done a good job.
We've covered.
And I also don't want to sound
basics.
too preachy,
Yeah, we've covered the basics. I mean, like at the end of the day, guys, just go out there and do what you love and go try to be the best at it. And it's never going to be a perfect process. But feet first, and the body will follow.
Yes. I wanted to ask a fun little wrap-up question.
Hit me with it.
Normally I ask about like your most impactful concert, but that was something we already covered. Mm-hmm. Like you gave great answers, so we don't have to go there. But something that I thought would be fun since, April Gray asked this on the last one, and you being his manager, I feel like this is fitting. He asked us if aliens came down and we had to like give them our pinnacle of a rap hip hop album.
Oh shit.
What would be the thing that we present to him? And I don't know if you know his answer, but I won't say it. Just
I don't actually know his answer. I did listen to the podcast, but like I don't remember that answer.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, I just know Abel killed it in that podcast. You sounded good, baby, so it's all good. But I'm gonna pretend I don't know his answer, even if I might have a loose idea of it. For me, hip hop wise, it's between two. And those two albums for me are gonna be To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar and Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt. And I'll explain why those two albums, to me, if we could give the aliens some hip-hop, why I would send those two. For one, I feel like Reasonable Doubt laid out like a blueprint, and it's crazy because Jay named his next albums after that, The Blueprint. There's one or two in between there, but got to the blueprints, right? Like, I feel like actually that album in itself is a blueprint for like boom bap transitioning into gangster rap. And it really exemplifies sharp, clever lyricism and wordplay with really melodic, beautiful beats. And it really summed up for me like what hip hop was at the time. That was an album I was exposed to rather early. Shout out to my uncle popping that into my head and around the 2nd, 3rd grade. And I've studied that album my whole life. And every time I revisit Reasonable Doubt, I find something that I learned from that album. And also I love it because he hit it when he was later, and like he was already like 26, 27 years old, hopping on the scene. No care in the world, just like I know I have a piece of quality here. I've been turned down by every record label known to man. I'm just gonna fund this myself, and boom, Jay-Z. If you follow his trajectory, you can see the evolution of hip hop in a beautiful way. That's more on the tip of like, if you want to experience hip hop through Jay-Z, starting with that album, it'll give you a good read on like how hip hop evolved and like where it sits in society. A good hip hop album that really demonstrates the struggle of man. And I know that Kendrick is specifically talking about his community, right? But to me, like poverty and the struggles of man and the struggles of being a person and the struggles of struggling are really well laid out in How to Pimp a Butterfly. Contextually, Kendrick Lamar crafted a genius album that tells the story of man in his current state with all the good, the bad, and the ugly. Kendrick being the good of like, yo, I made it out of this community. There's success that's possible out there, but I'm not forgetting that this is still where I came from. This is what's going on the other side of the spectrum from my life, because I've experienced both. And Jay kind of hits on that too, but not quite yet in Reasonable Doubt. But in How to Pimp a Butterfly, you see Kendrick as a superstar at the time. He's already put himself in superstar territory. He's got a crown on his head after How to Pimp a Butterfly. Good Kid, Mad City went crazy.
That was Abel's.
You know what I'm saying?
That was his pick.
That was his?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we both chose Kendrick, bro. We were meant to be friends. Anyway, so that put him on the map as like, yo, you're a colossal artist. And then he went and was like, all right, what's socially relevant for me to talk about? What's important? Like, my voice matters clearly here in this ecosystem. So what can I talk about that's going to be impactful? And I think How to Pimp a Butterfly, if the aliens wanted to, because they're already coming down looking at us being like, oh, they're still fighting over money and territory. Oh, dude, they don't know how to work together. Like, they're still killing each other off. Like, they're still like segregating people and like using divisive tools against each other. As unfortunate as it sounds, human race, we're not at our greatest level of evolution right now as far as like cohesiveness between each other. And I think How to Pimp a Butterfly lets the aliens know something they probably already know already, looking down at us.
If they're studying
because
us,
think about this, to be able to be intergalactic and to be able to put that much organization behind something, chances are they've moved past like fighting each other a long time ago to be able to achieve something so remarkable that even in our current advanced understanding of science, we have no idea how to break that barrier of like moving across galaxies. Solar systems is even hard. We keep barely making it to Mars, which we will do soon.
Yeah.
But we're just scratching the surface on that. And that's taken a lot of working together. Yeah. So How to Pimp a Butterfly would let the aliens know we're not quite where they're at yet. And I think it's good for them to know that.
But we're conscious of the fact that like there are struggles.
Sure.
And we're trying to make it better. It's just we don't know how.
Yeah, my dad actually, like, the other night we were having this conversation pretty much verbatim, and he was like, I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. He was like, because, like, without conflict and struggle, he's like, there really never is any progress. So he brought on the counter argument.
You know what? Okay, yeah, no, keep going. Sorry.
Just last part of this, he brought on the counter argument that like maybe aliens have their own shit still going on too, because in order to drive progress, like something has to like push us to do that. And a lot of times that's conflict and something going wrong. Think about it. You never learn anything that amazing on a great day.
Something I was thinking about was that, you know, it freaks, like the AI stuff freaks me out. But I had like a positive thing about it that, you know, if AI is going to become this like big just issue in terms of so many things for us, that maybe what will happen is it will be like AI versus humans, and I really hope we can work together, but at least there is a divide, and then it puts all humans on one side to be like, all right, we got to work together, otherwise this thing that we've created is going to take us down.
So there's like two thought trajectories to that, right? There's like the like scientists and academics call like the one side of that, like the nihilistic approach of like, these are evolving past our evolution, like technology is evolving fast, AI is evolving to surpass us, and we have to team up as humans to counteract that. The other, which is like the more optimistic, I think, like endpoint, is that we merge with it successfully in a singularity. So
Yeah.
I think that like
I think that there can be both, though, where it's like we unify each other as humans because we understand that there's this existential threat, and then at the same time we
find a way to integrate successfully.
find a way, because if AI is going to be like the brain and all of us humans are the ant colony, all of
Sure.
us. Something I also think about is like human beings are kind of like a body. Like we're all the different cells doing different things.
Combination of things.
But there is a brain.
Sure.
And having a brain, a centralized brain like AI could be the shit. That's
could
the
be.
thing that
It
could
could be.
make us the shit. But I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that could go.
So I
Different
really
ways.
believe it could go in those two forks of the road, right? And I'll end it with this because it's a wise way to look at this perspective. When the atom was split in the 1940s at the University of Chicago, right here in our beautiful city. If you anyone who doesn't know that.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I
so
didn't realize that was
so-
like the first.
So the atom was split here in Chicago at the University of Chicago.
They could have fucked shit up, dude.
Dude, they did fuck shit up, technically.
They really almost made a big mistake.
Yeah, really. So in that process, they got all these scientists and leaders together to see if they should release this information to
Bro, Oppenheimer? Sorry, that movie just looks bomb. I just
bomb,
like,
dude. I want to
sick.
see that too, dude. I'm gonna definitely tap into that because I know that's out there. I'm like, So Einstein in that process brings up a great point, and he was on the vote of like, we shouldn't do this, because he expressed the concern that just like a knife can be used to cut your loaf of bread, it can also be used to kill someone. And that we are such a wide range of people, good, bad, everything in between. That knife's going to go to good and bad hands. So maybe we should keep this under wraps. The counter argument to that was like, cat's already out of the bag, bro. If we've got this figured out, maybe the Russians do too. Maybe Cuba's got it figured out, et cetera. Germany's probably working on this as we speak. They got it in the bag. That fear of like, this, if we're like, you know how like sometimes you have an idea and then you see like someone on TV with that same idea killing it like 2 months later and you're like, I wish I should have did that idea.
Yeah.
So I believe that like there's a collective consciousness aspect to all this.
Like parallel thinking.
Because
we're all at this point, okay, what's the next thing?
Because it's rather simple of an explanation to think that like if we're experiencing the same things, the same variables, the same technologies in the same period of time, having the same ideas given those variables that we all share, given the time we live in, it's not as crazy to think that someone else is also smart and has had that idea out there with you.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the final judgment on that. So with AI, it's like, I think the similar approach is going to be taken where it's like, it's not yeah, but no. It's like cat's out of the bag. The best thing we can do now is find a successful way to integrate without like killing ourselves off somehow, which
it's gonna be tricky.
We're gonna see.
I feel like the thing too is like, you know, the United States is gonna have their own AI. Each AI is gonna be different based on what we feed them. Maybe some are gonna be psychopathic, some are gonna be like fed with just loving humans. So like we love humans. We should
Totally.
definitely feed them more. Like a diet for an AI should be like 80% human beings, we love them.
Absolutely.
20% just like technical shit.
And then think about it this way, like for the longest time, the military and the government, and if there is any like, most funding comes from there, right? My parents, my grandparents, my dad, everyone's military people. I'm the first generation, first male in my family not to be in the military. Shout out to the fucking black sheeps out there who are trying to set a different way. But I mean, it wasn't really my grandparents and my parents' fault. Like, we just had mandated military where we're from, and a lot of wars going on. We're coming out of World War II and World War I and the Balkan Wars, etc. So it was the Cold War. It was necessary. But For me, it's like if we're still like dividing ourselves in that way,
Yeah.
like we're probably gonna make divisions in our technology to serve those means to ends, right?
Yeah.
So unless we can, like, I think my biggest goal is like, and I think I've gotten this perspective because I'm not from America, I'm from Europe. And I like to think of myself as a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, the economy is pretty global. Why can't we be working better together on a personal level?
There's just gonna be that point where like it has to. Maybe AI will be that thing because we'll have this thing that scrapes all of the internet and like
Sure.
global. Like it's just like this global network. Who knows?
I think my deduction from like, because AI has been a hot topic
Oh,
for
yeah.
everyone on my team, everyone around me.
Yeah.
Like even with, I was chilling with Boogie T's tour manager Yvonne this last weekend, and even me and him struck up like, where's AI taking our industry? And that's been a common
yeah.
conversation between all of us. And I think my one realization is just like how the internet came out, and we were like, this is gonna rock shit. Whoever realized it. We knew it was gonna rock shit. I'm at a similar focal point now where I'm like, AI is not going anywhere. It's gonna rock shit, and we got to figure out
gotta
a
do
way
it,
to
yeah.
integrate this successfully. Otherwise, we might have some boo boos.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like inevitably. It's just that the boo boos, we don't want them to be too bad.
Too bad.
Basically.
It's okay if they're little and they help us along the way to get to where we need to go. But yeah, I think we have power in mitigating some of those things because we're rather intelligent at this point as
Yeah.
human beings.
And we have very sharp knives.
Very sharp knives. Very, very, very sharp knives. So it's careful. We have to be careful how we use them. So I'm going to remain always on the side of
Yeah,
optimism.
I agree. I am optimistic about it.
I'm going to accept the fact that it could go sour, though.
I'm just a little bit like
we'll see what
devil's
happens
advocate.
here.
Just interested, honestly, because
Me
it
too.
really is the new thing, like the internet. It's like the new internet.
is.
And I think people are talking about it like, oh yeah, but I hear a lot of resistance from people being like, oh well, yeah. I mean, all AI does is just take in input and like do other stuff, and it's like
output, yeah.
stealing stuff. And I'm like, isn't
It's a little
that
more
what we
we do
kind of do
anyway?
as human beings? Like, aren't we like all? I mean, I don't know. We
I
haven't
believe
figured
that-
out the nature nurture thing, but like,
I mean, I think
know what
that
I mean?
I think that just
People
like anything,
downplay it.
just like anything else, like it's a tool that gets brought into our equation, and we have to learn how to harness this tool
yeah,
and how to use it properly. And there might be a little bit of like a gray period of like us figuring it out, and I'm willing to accept that in everything. Like we're gonna go through a period of we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna make some mistakes, and hopefully, like you said, the mistakes just won't be that bad.
yeah. And honestly, there's really nothing me and you can do about
Nope.
it.
So
either.
let's sit back and
we're
watch.
good,
And
yeah.
dude, have you ever tried VR?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot, but it is really cool.
Come over to Kofresi's house with me one time. I'm moving back to Chicago in like a month, so
Yeah, I'd love to.
come send it because
Yeah.
for some reason like that virtual reality world, and like now that AR is coming out, like Apple
With the
just
Apple
did,
thing, yeah, crazy.
we're moving into territories that like I think whether we like it or not, we gotta
Yeah.
like at least learn about
We're all
them.
just gonna be sitting here like
Some Black
not
Mirror
talking.
episode.
Yeah, dude, it's scary, but whatever. We'll figure it out.
But here's the solution. Like my dad is a software engineer. He's been one for like he's a nuclear physicist by education, but he's been a software engineer since we moved to America. And
so he's smart.
my family is pretty intelligent and educated. Yeah, definitely. Like these are the type of topics we talk about at the dinner table. Like
Yeah, that's
football,
cool.
this Fox News, CNN, like that really ain't on our topic list. Like quantum mechanics and like, you know, running theories in physics, and like my mom's a psychologist, and like where's the brain going?
No,
and, like,
that's
what do we do?
cool. That's like a really cool dichotomy.
Balance of
yeah.
people. Yeah, I really believe that.
Or
That
not
really
but yeah. Like
yeah,
both of
no,
them.
it is. There's a dualism there,
Juxtaposition.
just a position. Yeah, so those are the conversations going on in my house all the time. So like I think that as humans, the beauty of us as a species is like our deep and everlasting curiosity towards figuring anything and everything out. And I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where we're like, we've figured everything out. But that's the beauty of life, is that it's always about the pursuit. Like that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. It says it in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence as well. It's the pursuit of happiness. I think it's the
Yeah.
pursuit of things that push us forward. There's no end point.
Yeah. I agree. And
we're in an infinite universe.
that was like something we were talking about before too, about like people who don't know what to do. There's so much to do. And like the other thing that's nice is like there is so much more out there. It's not like we're at a point as beings where we're like, bro, we don't have anything to do. Like that would suck. Like maybe aliens are just like, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'd
But
say.
you know what I mean? It would be bad to be like, well, we're gods now and we're bored.
Yeah, we're gonna chill on Mount Olympus and just drink brewskis.
That's
with
what
the
the
boys.
fucking Greek gods would do. They would literally torment the humans
Absolutely.
because they were
Bro.
like, yeah, fuck it. Do I like have sex with like my like, dude? It's just it got all fucked up. You know what I
Totally.
mean? Like,
When you give people that kind of crown of like, I've accomplished everything, I am a god, I am enlightened, whatever. Like, what do you do then? It's like, okay, that's great and all, but like on a practical level, like there's blood moving through you. Like you should be doing something. And yeah, I find that that's the best thing about us as people is like we do so many amazing things, and like people think what we do is amazing as musicians. I think like what doctors do, for me personally, like scientists and doctors are like the most fascinating to me. I had heart surgery 2 years ago. I had both my heart valves replaced.
Really?
Best thing that ever happened to me. Made me very grateful for life, and like I approach life with a lot of gratitude now. But like I have just well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you feel way better afterwards?
Hell yeah. Well, no, I felt worse than I felt better. But
Okay.
yeah, the recovery period was rough. But anyway, like just like being grateful for life is a beautiful thing. And once you're grateful in it, like you want to just live it to the fullest. And I think that there's enough people out there that are doing that. And for me personally, like I'm the most fascinated with like doctors and scientists, where I think like every person that does anything out there that's remarkable is like worth appreciating. It's like when people fanboy or fangirl on artists, I'm like, hey, do you do this to your therapist too? Just wondering. Because like we're all
Like the
just people
work
that
you
are good at
do,
things. Yeah.
Well, music, I'm going to try to not go down a rabbit hole. I'm just going to say that like music is really interesting because like there is a lot of math and there is a lot of like science that has this like fun interplay between like, oh, why does this chord make why does it make you feel this emotion? It's like I don't fucking know, but it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a fascination there because it touches us in a human way.
Yeah,
I think that's like something that's common also between all great music is like it finds a way to touch us somehow where we're like, oh, I spiritually feel this, like I connect with this on a deeper level. So
I think that's why people are like, oh, musicians, is because there's this like curtain
there is
where it's like, oh, like how does it even work? And maybe we'll figure out on how to quantify why these things work. But like right now,
it's hard.
You go talk to like a doctor, they're more like, well, yeah, actually ATP, blah blah. Like you know what I mean?
This is the formula,
like,
and this is exactly the components that make this up. And if this goes wrong, etc. Totally. Where for us, we're like in the creative spectrums, it's like a little more loosey goosey on that, and it's almost like mystical. Like to me, like the creation of a great song is like a magical moment where it really is like we don't even understand it as musicians, or we're just like, how the fuck did that just happen?
Yeah,
but it did. So there is that like mysterious like marvel to what we do for sure. But
yeah, getting out of the way of yourself. I'll just say.
And we do, and we do appreciate the fans more than anything. You guys are the reason that we're able to do what we do, and to be able to do it at a level that we do it at, while being able to live good lives. And thank you for that to everyone out there who tunes in and listens to these podcasts.
Let's go.
Listens to these songs. Like you guys are really what's keeping us going here. So yeah.
Shout outs. I was just going to say we can end with some shout outs.
Shout
You've
outs.
shouted out a lot of people, but
Definitely. So main shout outs, of course, to the fans, the inspirations that we've had out there, top two. Shout out to all the support that we've had from our families. Shout out to my whole team, from Kofresi to Abel Gray, Say What, Kaleidoscope, Jim Murphy. Look up all those guys. They make incredible music. Shout out to everyone who's taught me something I didn't know along the way, and everyone who's checked me when I haven't been doing what I was supposed to. And to that, I'll drink some of this legally high as THC seltzer, because I don't drink alcohol. But cheers, dude. This has been a great
cheers,
podcast.
man. Yeah, this has been fun. You can come back whenever, man. We'll do another one.
We'll do
in
another
a year
session.
or something.
We'll do a year or so. We'll see where we're at
Time
with
capsule.
things.
That's what
But I really
call
appreciate
these.
it. This podcast is great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate
This
you.
has been a sick
Thanks
conversation.
for coming through, man. Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
Cheers.
on to the next.
Later.
Have a good night, or maybe it's morning. I don't know, but have a good day.
Peace.